recording. Everything is good. I just landed, racing here, missed the bus. Then Simon tried to take me to the train on the car. Then the tire was stuck. And then it was pouring rain. And I was just thinking, you know what? Going to have a satsang conversation, everything is fine.
Yes.
You know?
Everything is fine.
So, and this is being recorded live, but we're also going to post it as like a regular podcast episode. But I was telling you before, Vijay, that I want these good company conversations to be like spontaneous and delightful and joyful. Exactly how I feel when I see you in person, you know?
Yeah.
And we just share spontaneous satsang. Because I feel like so much, you know, like with the podcast and sort of formats and platforms, it's okay?
It just says there's chat messages, but I can't see them.
So go back.
Good evening. Okay.
Oh, it's Allison and Trevor.
Oh,
Great.
hello.
And Sarah. So Italy and New Zealand. So Sarah is a fellow meditator, and Allison and Trevor are friends with Rebecca and Mayank in New Zealand.
Nice.
Cool. So welcome, guys. We're just figuring it out, and it's I think a different format because usually when we meet people live, we can see them, but this kind of live stream we just
and we are in the same room. Despite I don't know if they also see us in two different frames.
I don't know.
Do you see us in two different frames? Because we see us in two different frames, but we are actually in the same room.
Side by side.
Yeah.
I think that's the AI. This is like also, we're living here in the AI recording software.
It's an AI. Yeah, it's being very clever for us.
Yeah, nice. Okay, yes, 2 frames. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But I was saying that, you know, I feel like there's so much structure around at least the things that I'm sharing and teaching, you know, like classes and courses and things that are set, like sort of structure. And sometimes I feel that the things that really delights me is just having spontaneous satsang, like just having those good company where we can just express where we are right now and what's going on for us in our practice, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just like today when I was like, thinking of, and this is something actually Allison is in one of my groups, and we've been talking about like having every opportunity, that's good, yeah, as a place to practice sadhana. So like this morning I was like rushing, I was feeling stressed to get here on time, and at the same time listening to an audio about like remembering the self and like how we kind of have to hold these two truths at once, you know?
Yeah. I think that's a definition of a human being. We are holding the two truths as at once, and that's why we are so confused. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, I am peaceful and eternal and immortal. I am so confused. I'm sweating and I'm hungry and I'm late. And how can these? How can we hold these two at the same time? Why? And which one is truly us? Which is a spiritual quest is to, you know, like teachers all say the quest is for what you already are, you know.
But then, do you think that then that's like, that is the sadhana is to remember it whilst running late for the train in the rain?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like, because I can't get away from running late in the rain unless I left earlier.
No.
but
No, it's like, the moment you choose, accidentally become a human being, then you're bound. You're bound. You cannot, as long as you're here in the body, you cannot escape having to go to the supermarket and sleep and get up and worry about your this and that. But I think there's one sentence, I think I told you before, but there's one sentence this year that I picked up from the Bhagavad Gita, which I read many times, but this one sentence this year was saying, don't get attached or have aversion to the worry and agitation of your mind. It doesn't say cultivate a calm mind or have no thoughts. It doesn't say that. It says don't have attachment and aversion to the state of your mind. Right? It's like saying, have the same attitude you have to your mind as you have to the clouds and the sky. No attachment, no aversion.
It kind of reminds me like of Swamiji's revelation at the beginning of Patanjali, because quite often that first verse, Yog Chit Vritti Nirodha, is translated as basically stopping the mind. And Swamiji was saying, actually, the revelation or the enlightenment is going beyond the mind, which will always be in motion as long as it's there.
Yeah, the mind is part of nature, Prakriti, and nature is seen as an automatic thing. It's almost like some power set in motion, a perpetual motion system. Well, maybe not perpetual because it will probably end one day, but some power said, okay, these are the rules, now go. And then it's just been running forever. And part of it is the mind. And the trees and the clouds, the dogs and the cats and the rivers and the planets and the galaxies. And we just cultivate such an ownership of this part of nature and specifically the very subtle moving part of nature. And we say, this is me. But we have no power over it.
Yeah, like we don't say to the tree, like, stop growing in that way. Or like, like as if it's so kind of ridiculous to think of stopping or changing the flow of nature.
Yeah.
But yet we try to do it with ourselves and then sort of get down on ourselves as like a bad yogi.
Yeah.
If I haven't like mastered the control of the senses.
Well, it's like sitting by a river, like, I'm going to sit by the river and meditate, and I will feel peaceful once the river does not move. It's like, and the wind dies down, and there are no clouds on the, like, we don't expect that, but in some ways we do expect that. That's why we have summer houses. I'm going to go to the summer house, there's no work. I want nature, all the moving parts of the automatic, always changing nature, I want them to calm down, and I want to not be involved with them. Like, no work. I want to sit on the porch with my cup of coffee and whatever, newspaper or wine, and I don't want to be disturbed, right? I don't want anything, because we can stir up the movement of nature to a certain degree, but only to a very small degree, because it's just moving all the time, and we don't know how to calm down our minds most of the time. Like, we have no power over what thoughts come into our heads. Right?
Yeah.
Like you in the dream, like, I want to sleep now. And the mind is like, and then we can put this thing there and put it next to that one. And then we can put a hook there and tie it with a thing there. But then I should get it from that shop or that shop. Let me just Google that, And then even if you have no phone, your mind is kind of Googling in itself.
Yeah.
And we have no power over it. It's clear we have no power over the mind.
But isn't it kind of like, I don't know, would you say like we don't have power over the mind, and yet the power of the meditator is sort of that awareness, or the vairagya of the mind, so the kind of space, which then helps us kind of have the sense of freedom from the mind.
Yeah, I think that our attitude is the only thing we can work on. It's like we are watching a play. Like there's sadness and murder mystery and dance numbers and magic shows, right?
Musicals.
And yeah, I think in the beginning of the spiritual process we're like, oh, actually it's a play I'm watching. And then you start being de-identified with the play, but then you might still react to it or crave it, or and you realize the play will happen no matter what you do. You're not the doer of the mind, or of the world out there, of the, like you have this long-term plan to come across from Sweden on the train, and then you miss What happened? You missed the bus?
I missed the bus, which then made me miss the train. So then, then you get back 5 minutes and then 10 minutes. And suddenly I'm like, how am I, so affected by 5 minutes?
Yeah.
But then, ripple out. And then it's suddenly things appear to be out of control, because they are, I guess,
Which they are.
Yeah.
It's just the illusion of control.
Yeah, because the illusion that, okay, in hindsight, I should have, could have, would have, but then that is just, disturbing the mind, because it's I'm here now in this moment, because that's when I'm meant to arrive.
Yeah.
But how much sense of doership the mind is so habituated in.
Yeah, so it's only it's only the attitude to the phenomena that happens to float into your sphere of awareness that we can work on.
I guess too then it's we are products of our environment also, because we live in using this example of this morning, we have to sort of function in a way that operates on things start at this time, I'll meet you at this time, and then we kind of, it's almost the self is so expansive and I want to just remain unaffected and kind of float through with that state of awareness. But then we also have to, like you said, be the human being, which means operate in a linear way, operate in a feeling of constriction sometimes.
And I think the suffering comes because we don't know what it is to be human. We think being human is being in control, in a way. Like this whole system, you live in Malmö across the water. I live here. We didn't create these two pieces of land, or the bridge connecting it, or the trains, or the buses, or the app where you can see when the trains leaves and comes and connections. And, I didn't create that I was going to be born and live in Copenhagen, and you didn't create that you were going to be born in by some mystical way, weird way, end up in Sweden. Right? None of it is your creation.
Yeah.
And then we tell ourselves, I am the doer of this, and the results, the failures, the pride, the shame,
but also
all belongs to us and characterizes us. But it's we're just dropped into this ongoing soap, right?
Yeah.
As a character without a script, and then we, for some reason, have this weird idea. I'm gonna run this show now. I'm gonna get this in order. And I'm gonna, instead of saying, well, I'm just Swamiji said, our guru, be a leaf. Just be a leaf in the wind. And that ultimately all of this Maya world is benign and wants us to find truth. And we're just, with our little ego agency, creating this whole other story. That it's a threat. Somehow it's a problem and we have to fix it. And we've forgotten to ask, what is it being a human being? Being a human being is being subjected to all the different powers of nature that have been growing in complexity since the Big Bang, or whatever we call the beginning of it all. And we're subjected to 1 million inputs every day, and their roots are billions of years old. Right? And here we step onto stage, and this incredibly complex mechanism of each cell is a commune of cells and virus that are supposed to be there, and then you're the whole universe has conspired to create this moment. We are the sum of everything that's gone before. Of course and that's the automatic nature of nature, prakriti, that it's in physics they say the same thing, right? It's four basic powers and 16 basic particles and they all just thrown into the table like dice, and they all just start recombining, and then just creating all this. And that's the human being.
Well,
And then there's pure consciousness.
Right.
Pure self, pure being, awareness, God, space, whatever we call that, which is totally not subject to all those, the laws of nature, of change and cause and effect. And then, and we hold both, like you said in the beginning.
I'm thinking of like Swamiji saying to be like a leaf, and how, to me, like if I'm contemplating on that, that means, of course, like being connected to that pure consciousness, like you're saying. And the sort of human being wants to interpret, be like a leaf, like just let those, the suffering and the sense of contraction, the smallness, sort of just be happening, but remain uninvolved. And something I've heard so often, like, and also within myself, is like, it's so easy to say, like, I want to let go of the suffering or the sense of smallness or individuality because it makes me feel bound. But, like, does one have to... but we love the, like, moments of friendship. We love the moments, like, in the yoga practice, just using that as an example, or the moments with, like, your sister just had a baby, like, with that moment where we love life and we love the baby, like, how to remain uninvolved from even the things that bring us great joy, great happiness, great satisfaction. Like, we want to hang on to those things, which I guess then comes, like, into aversion. So how to... it's kind of like two sides of the same coin, and the side of the coin, which is war, suffering, duality. But actually, duality is also can feel good and can make us feel meaning as a human being, And I think that's one point that many people, myself included, reach in the contemplation. Like,
well, maybe I'm just having this thought now that you're talking about involvement and non-involvement. And involvement and non-involvement happens to the mind, right? You can say pure spirit, self, pure being, all permeating consciousness, whatever we call that, is everywhere, in everything. So in a way, it's involved in everything equally. It's like...
Because it's permeating everything?
Yeah, it is everything.
Yeah.
It's not even permeating, it is, like, I remember there's an example of ice, frozen ice, right? Water does not permeate in frozen ice. It is the frozen ice, So in the same way, consciousness does not permeate, let's say, the tree. Pure consciousness, awareness, pure being, whatever I give that name, is everything. That matter is, like the same way that matter is energy crystallized, right? Matter is not fueling, energy is not fueling matter. Matter is energy. The same way, all this is also, you can say energy is a kind of, could be understood as consciousness in a way.
Right.
So like, consciousness is just somehow twisted into the appearance of a tree. Appearance. It's twisted into the appearance of solid matter. But how did we get here? So involved, uninvolved?
Yeah.
That it's because we love to be involved with beautiful things and puppies and babies and friendships and coffee, because it gives us a sense of no judgment, because it's perfect. And then the mind gets a break, and then we feel this is nice involvement. And then the moment it's not there, we feel a kind of pain, because then we judge the situation as not fulfilling me any longer when the boss is late. Right? It's like, this is not perfect. And you're like, I don't want to have this experience of good, bad. So let me just be uninvolved. But maybe the uninvolvement is just a step on the way. And practice uninvolvement, because then I will see things clearly. I will see them for what they are. And maybe there comes a point where you can then pour your sense of being without judgment into everything. So there is no difference. And it reminds me of what our friend Baba Vivekananda said It's not what you look at, it's how you look at things that will transform it. Your attitude. So if you can have the attitude of, I love my baby as much as this baby and that dog, and
it's like that Ram Dass song where he says, like, I love my wheelchair, I love my pen, like, that's a beautiful...
And he also says, if you know yourself, if you identify as a soul and you look, he called it soul land, or something like, then you see everything else as soul and as you. But if you identify as a body, you identify as a thing, and a thing exists only with separation. And then, when you separate, you're bound in this game of being a human being, and then you forget that you are pure awareness. No, I'm reading Ibn Arabi, the Sufi 12th century Sufi guy that I totally love. And he says, he quotes the Quran, where Muhammad says, please God, let me know the things. Because if I know what things are, I will know what I am, meaning not a thing. And when I know what I am, I will know God.
So I like kind of like neti, the Sufi version.
It's like, what are things? I mean, what are things that exist in separation and are time limited? If I know what they are, what are things? And he also says things includes the body and the thoughts and the mind, because they're discrete objects appearing for a moment and disappearing. That's the definition of a thing. So let me know all the things as they are. Muhammad in the Quran asked God this. It's wild.
But isn't that also like Vivek, like discerning?
No, it's the same. That's why it's so wild. It's like, it's there in that scripture, and that scripture, and that scripture. And let me know what things are, so I know what I am. And when I know what I am, meaning pure spirit, then I know God. I know the totality of being. So I think it's like, again, coming back to your very useful being late on the bus, that it's holding the two thoughts. Like the bus is a thing, the schedule is a thing, the bridge, the appointment, your judgment of the situation is a thing. But then at the same time, you remember, I am pure spirit. But how to hold both. I think the idea is not to hold both equally, because they are not equal. One is a space that pure spirit is a space that holds everything, and the things we struggle with are little waves appearing in that. We cannot hold them equally side by side. One is a phenomenon happening in the other.
Last night I was reading Nisargadatta, and he was speaking about desire, that he said desire in itself is not bad or wrong. But it's what are you actually desiring? Are you desiring, he used the example of food, sex, money, fame, or are you desiring to know yourself? Because, it's like then saying what equal or not equal, or what is, like, we have the sense of desire within us as a human being, as the only unique being that can know the self. So it's like if we're directing that sense of desire or sense of priority to like be in good company, so that we can do the efforts on the relative field to keep remembering that self, like that must be prioritized in a sense.
Our Guru Swami Shyam, he said several things, and he's like one quote I love. He said, I know that nothing in this world can satisfy me, so I'm always at peace. Like not looking for satisfaction in the world. And he also said, there's no problem with desire. It's the narrowness of your desire that makes you unhappy. Desire the ultimate. Don't be small. Don't desire small things. And he also said, he spoke about necessary desires, binding desires, and freeing desires. And necessary desires is like water, shelter, food, and so on, safety. They're necessary, not binding, not freeing. Binding desires are the ones that are more than what you just need. Or desires for things that, like desire for things that we don't need, but we want an extraordinary, beautiful something. You know, we don't just want a spoon. We want like an incredibly silver spoon with enamel, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, you know, some kind of spoon, because we think that will bring us peace and happiness. And that's a binding desire because it's not true. It's an illusion of finding peace, ultimate peace and happiness we want through an object, a thing. So that's a binding desire. You know, we want an embellished spoon, not just a spoon. So, but I think there's no problem with wanting a beautiful spoon, but if we expect it to give us the ultimate happiness and peace, that's the binding thing. And then there's a freeing desire, which is a desire for truth, peace, wisdom.
Mumukshitva.
Yeah, liberation, oneness. But to be aware of what kind of desire you're dealing with. What are your expectations when you know, like, if you want to be on time, and then you're not on time, you know, then immediately we make a whole structure of cause and effect and judgment and outcome. And like, it's good to be on time because then I feel peaceful, right? It's bad to be late because then my peace is taken away. And that's attitude.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing we can work on.
Yeah.
We never know when we're late or on time. Yeah.
But it does feel like then, like that's the kind of the beauty of doing sadhana is slowly we start to be less affected. It doesn't mean we don't try to be on time, but you can find some laughter or just letting things go as opposed to...
Yeah, we do our best, but we know the result is out of our hands.
Non-doership.
That's what Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. That the idea that the result is somehow our product or belongs to us is what creates fear and suffering. Because we think then the result is what we are. Or it somehow characterizes us in a good or bad way.
Yeah.
I was thinking this morning about, it's called good company, your idea of this podcast. And then I thought about this quote, which I always found a little bit judgmental, but it's saying, stupid people talk about events. I think that's how it is, right?
Yeah.
Average people talk about people, and more developed people talk about ideas, right? And I thought, but you know, it's judgmental, but it's idea of, you know, what do you use your mind? You know, do you talk about this and that happened, or do you talk about a person and the personality, and you know, do you talk about ideas, more abstract? But then I thought, you know, in good company, what I think is good company, you go beyond events, even ideas. You know, you touch the infinite, the eternal, beyond mind. That's where you are headed with your inquiry.
But I think too, it's like so rare to have that kind of company because most of the world and the environment are speaking about situations, they're speaking about people, are speaking about the relative, which is why I know like those that are say here on the chat or listening to the podcast, it's like we seek it out because it is so rare to find others that are interested in talking about those ideas or concepts that direct our attention towards that space which is unbound from the ups and downs, the sense of happiness that comes momentarily or fleetingly, like the actual state of bliss and contentment. Like to find the environments in a world that isn't conducive with that, to sit in that and to be in that and to find joy in that is so rare.
Yeah, it's like you know, those beautiful spiritual poetry quotes from different people saying things like you are everything and nothing, right? It doesn't make sense to the mind, but when you when you hear these words, you are everything and nothing, or you are immortal, but you're also going to die, you know. It's like, when you say these things, it kind of opens a space in your mind. It opens a door. So beyond mind, it's like, your mind goes, whoa, it's beautiful, I don't understand it, right? And Rumi is a master in that, these kind of contradictions that says these things, and they indicate, I think, when you reach the limit of mind, you're knocking gently against where mind can't go, and it goes, wow, nice, you know, it gives you a joy, but we don't ask why, because we're not normally in our culture schooled in self-inquiry. Meaning, what is this experience of, wow, it's beautiful, you know?
Yeah.
Or when you see a work of art and it talks to us, but we don't know why. And I think it's, you know, because we reach the border. It's like a bubble of the mind and its reasoning and logic that we can follow. But when we reach the border of that, we knock against the eternal or the self, like, and often we stop there. We're like, that was nice, you know, more coffee, but but in good company, there's a space to say, what was that? There's, look, you know, hey, there's an invisible wall here we just hit. Is there anything beyond it? You know, why does it bring me joy to hear you die every moment, you don't exist, you are eternal, or what, you know? You are pure, free forever. It's because it's where we reach the limit of the mind.
But that is, like, for me, like, even I'm just thinking about, like, Sarah, who's on this list on the live stream. She's an Ashtangi yogi, and so she has reached so far in her asana practice, her pranayama practice, and now, and I hope, Sarah, you don't mind me using you as an example, but her inquiry, her mind has sort of reached the point of the practice where it's like finding that edge, that wall, like, and I think many people can relate to, you know, for some people it happens like later in life where it's like, I've achieved everything and yet there's a wall. Like, what's next? What's beyond? And some people have it sort of like innately, like always wondering or disillusioned with the world. And we kind of see that dissatisfaction with the world. The world's going to perceive that as a negative thing, to be like sort of dissatisfied with the world.
Disillusion.
But in the spiritual sense, like finding that wall and actually inquiring into what is beyond, like, and how do we do it? Of course, we reflected and we contemplated with each other, but like the power of closing one's eyes to go beyond, it's like really amazing.
It's the start of disillusionment, a spiritual inquiry. Like, you know, you've gone through you're going to shop in all the rows and aisles of the supermarket, and you're still not satisfied. And you're like, is there anything outside the supermarket? You know, you're like, there's something here, right? It's beyond the senses and the mind, but hearing those sentences, you are everything and nothing, you know yourself and know God. It gives a sense of space.
Yeah.
It's not just words for the mind, and it's like this kind of self-inquiry. Like we were talking about the river before. You know, normally you say, what river is this? That's the Nile. End of discussion. Maybe. Where does it start? Oh, two sources, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, then you can make a documentary series about the Nile, right? You know? And, but what is this river? It's like, does it even have a source? Not really. Like, a river has a million sources, and, you know, the first source must be a drop, and that drop fell from the sky. You know, and before it fell, it was vapor, right? And then you can look at water molecule, it's H2O, and then each H and 2, each atom is 99.9% space. And the electrons are just a cloud of probability. They found out now there are no real particles, they're just clouds of probability. So it's made of nothing, and like Niels Bohr, the Danish physicist, father of quantum physics, who is buried.
Oh, he's Danish.
Just here.
Okay.
I pass his grave every day.
Yeah.
He said, everything you call real is fundamentally made of something that you cannot in any way call real.
Wow.
Right?
That's so far out.
So the river that we say, it's the Nile, it's the Ganges, it's blah, blah, blah. If we inquire into it and don't just ask about events and name and thing, person, but in good company, allow ourselves to knock against the wall of reason. If we examine it to the end, it becomes space, right? It becomes the illusion of matter, which is just vibrations in space. And those vibrations are just tiny changes in the infinite field of space. Right? And it's not just about rivers, it's about anything you can point to. If you take the inquiry and you don't just say, I know what it is now. You say, but what is that? But what is that? But what is that? But what is that? You will end with space or pure being, or you can call it whatever name you want. You know, you can call it God, energy, space, nothingness, eternal beingness. But anything you take in an inquiry and don't say, I know it now, you'll get to there. Right?
Yeah.
The river is an illusion. It has no source and beginning.
But
it has no banks.
Yeah.
Because if you look closely at them, there's no definite border between the land and the river. You know, it's just a general bleeding into each other.
Yeah. But then I guess it goes back to like what you were saying before about, so we're kind of trained, or like we're taught from a young age to exist in the polarities and to exist in this way. And I suppose it's like to keep us alive, you know, we have to kind of function in a way. Yeah. And also, like, I just wanted to like give an invitation also for those that are listening to write any like reflections or revelations you have in the chat too. So feel free to just like pop in, and I know Allison loves quantum physics, one of the on here, so she's probably, I knew she was smiling there. But yeah, just definitely the invitation to share on there. And when you were speaking, I was also thinking, last week I had an interview with Zach, who I'm going to be sharing soon, and we were talking about the sort of way that in the regular, if you will, world, the way children are raised to, you know, when you make a mistake, you made a mistake, and to sort of to keep them safe in a sense, keep them small. And actually the power of hearing again and again and again, you're never mistaken, you're pure as you are, you're a great being, you're a small individual, like how, and that's kind of is like, I feel for me, so much of my sadhana, especially the early days, have been like kind of, you know, I think it's a part of psychology now, like reparenting yourself, but I've kind of been, you know, hearing Guru's words, and like you said, through all the scriptures, all the quotes, kind of re-educating my mind to say, like, you are not just a small individual. Yes, you keep yourself functioning in the world, but know who you are, know who you are, know who you are. It's kind of like we're like kind of retraining, and we need the fellow students, the fellow sadhaks to like retrain ourselves, because like Swamiji once said, to do sadhana, you have to be stronger than the whole world. Yeah. And I feel that because the whole world is saying like, you're Bobby, you're this, you're that, and trying to make myself something great. But actually to remember, no, greatness was already there. I don't have to do anything to be great. But that's the kind of, the flip is like, you know, I want to say like there is a distinction between me and you, and you're saying like the river, like actually there is no separation between me and you if we're all just those like particles that just appear.
We're just like a cloud. Here's a thinner cloud, here's a thicker cloud, this is a blue sweater cloud, you know. Yeah, like within the bubble of the mind and things and identification, the world, it's all about becoming and being something, and then eventually you lose it, you unbecome, then your body becomes earth. It's all becoming and unbecoming and transitioning into different states of being absorbed, and then being again one, being born, But when we knock against that invisible border, we come into a field where there is no becoming and process, no coming and going. And so, like you say, we're not becoming something else. We are just letting go of our ignorance.
Yeah.
It's like we see the magic show, and the magic show is still going on.
Yeah.
But we now know it's a magic show.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't scare us, but we still have to take care of it to a certain degree. But we also know that ultimately we are just one tiny little power in an ocean of agency, of power that's been going forever. It's and it's scary to think that I should run this show, and I'm responsible for everything because a few minutes of contemplation about what happened in your life, what major events in your life happened, life-changing things, and you see, I didn't do them. They just happened to appear on the buffet, and I picked it up, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't make this buffet of events and random things and possibilities. It just appears. And if I don't ask myself what I'm going to eat from the buffet, I'll just eat what my parents ate. Or the opposite.
Yeah.
I'm not going to eat what my parents ate. And then you're not free.
Right. So that's, I guess, like where we practice the discernment of like discerning between what thought, from the buffet am I going to put my direction or attention on? Like, where am I going to focus? Or is it just kind of moving through the world blindly, or is it with that expanded attitude or perception, like you were saying before, like having that expanded awareness, so then we can know which environment to put ourselves in and have that free will, and also recognize that there is a power greater at play than just the individual sense of mind and ego that says, I can do this, I can't do that.
It's such a paradox. Because the human being is a paradox. That's why we love paradoxes. They make us go, wow, it's beautiful, you're nothing and everything. Yeah. Because we are the paradox of an embrace of the time-bound, dying, mortal world of things. At the same time, we are pure, eternal, ever infinite consciousness, beingness, God, space, whatever we call that. We are both. And so at the same time, we have to be careful. We have to be careful what environments we step into and what we do there, because they influence our ability to be free and clear, or to be confused and bound. At the same time, we have to remember that ultimately, I'm not confused or clear or bound or free. There's no becoming and nothing to let go of in reality. We're letting go of ignorance.
And ignorance being the ignorance of our own true nature, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it does feel like, again, like even the spiritual path is paradoxical to like the human being's kind of job. But like I was thinking on the way here, like listening to that audio of Purush and Prakriti, like how we have like our duty, like we have the roles that we are apparently choosing but actually have been chosen for us. Like I just think of the analogy of a parent. Like your duty is to be the parent. So you have to do your duty in the world, and it's kind of counterintuitive to remembering the self, so it feels like even just the path of the sadhak or the yogi is a kind of paradox, because we can't be a yogi and not be in the world.
No.
So how do we reconcile that? I guess it's through meetings like these and through our meditation practice, being like, we can meditate with our eyes closed for an hour a day, or it's like meditating, like walking in nature or being present and like practicing that state of meditation with eyes open. It feels like that is kind of the things that we can make efforts to cultivate in our lives.
Yeah, and as you say, we're like against all of humanity in a way, not in a bad way. It's just, but we're also against all our, if you believe in reincarnation or whatever we call that, we have a deep habit in us, either from this life or from other lives. It doesn't really matter. The fact is, in this life, we have such a deep ingrained habit of, this is me, these are my things, this is my identity, this is my education, gender, religion, philosophy, bank account, and that's who I am, right? and then, it's so deep that when you start asking yourself, is this really me?
Yeah, that's why I laugh when you said that. It's so silly. Yeah. Like when you say, like, I am my da-da-da-da and bank account. It's so funny because it's so true. Like how much of a sense of identification we get to all these qualifications that are so fluctuating.
And then you might say, oh, that's not me. But then you, oh, no, I'm my mind. I'm my ideas. I'm a being of spirit and philosophy. But it's also attachment in a way,
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna, you just assume a spiritual identity. I go to Bali, I wear white or whatever it is. Yeah. I'm vegan, I'm clairvoyant. It just becomes, there's a danger of that becoming another identity.
Yeah.
Because it's still the idea that I am something.
Right.
Right? And then, so it's as if the I cannot be alone.
But then, I think, I am that, best book ever, I am that.
Yeah.
But even that, isn't it then saying, but I guess I am that, implying I am all that is.
Oh, I am that which cannot be named.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I am that which cannot be understood. But also, the I that cannot be alone is the ego. Right?
The I that cannot be alone is the ego, because
ego is an illusion, so it has to wear the mask of existence by becoming this and that.
Wow, the ego has to wear the mask of
existing, of being, by putting on the costumes. This is a costume. I'm only incarnated because of ego. But the ego is like they say it's like a bird jumping from branch to branch, which is like from life form to life form. The moment the ego has nothing to wear. No, sorry. It's like Adam and Eve being kicked out of paradise. I have nothing to wear, They're kicked out naked, and the moment they eat from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, they are ashamed of their nakedness. It's like the ego, because in paradise they're one with God. Yeah. Right? And then the moment they eat of the tree of knowledge of good and bad, which is they eat of the tree of mind, judgment, intellect, they are ashamed. And God kicked them out of paradise, and the oneness is gone. So it's like then they live with ego. And then the ego is bound to jump from life to life and put on costumes of everything until one day it develops the idea to put on a costume of self-inquiry and asking, hey, what is this? So, and then it's like, am I really the little scared, non-existing ego that tries to pretend? That's the imposter syndrome, this imposter syndrome that for some reason people are talking a lot about these days, I think.
Well, I think they talk about it, imposter syndrome, I have a wish to be like a boss babe CEO, but I have imposter syndrome that's not who I am. Yeah,
but I think the original imposter syndrome is the original sin.
Yeah.
Like the original sin in the Garden of Eden is actually forgetting who you are. And therefore having to no longer like separate. Separate, be separate, and that's Amuji says. The moment you're separate, you're caught.
Mm-hmm.
The moment you think you're separate, you're caught in this wheel of birth and death and continuous trying to be something.
Mm-hmm.
And because you are basing your whole being on the ego, which doesn't exist. So you're building a structure on a foundation of illusion. So your whole being is illusory.
Mm-hmm.
And then in spiritual inquiry, you ask you if you're lucky, you come back after saying, okay, I'm not my job, not my bank account. Then I'm not my mind, I'm not my ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Then you come to, what am I then?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I'm going to read this. Somebody put in the chat something from Nisargadatta. Nothing stops you from being a jnani here and now except fear. You are afraid of being impersonal, of impersonal being. It is all quite simple. Turn away from your desires and fears and from the thoughts they create, and you are at once in your natural state.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fear. It creates the sense that you have to become something specific, otherwise you are not worthy or have no value.
Mm.
It's fearful. It's all, and when the moment there's fear, there's no freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Because then your choice is not based on clarity, but on need and fear. And that's how it is being in the ego.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming back to the idea of I, if you then can know that the I is eternal, immortal, always be, forever being, whatever we call that, pure consciousness, God, space, energy, nothingness, shunya, I don't know, anything. But then when you realize that you've been identifying with something that is not you and is not real, and then behind that has been standing forever the self, the true self, saying, hey, hello, I'm here. Wake up, why don't you see me?
Yeah.
And I think I said this before, but this quote I love from Meister Eckhart, this 12th century German mystic, Christian mystic, who said, God is like someone who during a game of hide and seek clears his throat in the hope to be found.
That's so beautiful.
This is so beautiful and so funny.
Yeah.
It's like God is forever clearing his throat in the hope to be found, clearing it through everything.
Yeah.
And
every situation, we think so many things that cause us friction or uneasiness is some kind of problem. But if we could actually, talk about changing your attitude or evolving your attitude to have that perception that everything that you notice and that strikes you is God clearing its throat and saying, hey, I'm with you. We're one. That's kind of what a delightful way to go about the day.
It is so funny.
Yeah. That's a good definite point. And actually just now when you were speaking too, I was thinking I re-listened recently to not recently, just last week, to our first podcast episode in season 1, which I'm sure most people have listened, but I'm going to suggest to listen to it again. It's the one called The Tiger, the Baba and the Guru. And in it, you said something so amazing. You used that analogy of stepping out of the mandala. And I think it's so beautiful as how do we remain that quote right there, to turn away from the desires and fears, and then you are at once in your natural state. Our natural state is outside of the mandala and the chaos of the world, and yet it goes on, but we just remain as the observer of it. It feels like that's kind of what we're doing.
And it's like everything is a mandala. The galaxies are mandalas, the solar system are mandalas, the atoms are mandalas, right? And the atoms are nothing but space. They're not real. They're just sensory perception. And if we investigate them, we will come to the source. Everything points to the source of pure space, pure being, everything.
Yeah.
It's like a ladder that leads us, let's say, into heaven, right? But we kind of climb a few steps and says, I like it here. This is it. I'm a greengrocer.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it here. I'm a ping pong player.
Yeah.
I like it here. I'm, then you get organized religion and ritual and dogmatism and all these steps, and then at the top you have, I think, prophets and gurus and wise men and women who are saying, no, come on, keep walking, but you have to be disillusioned with your ping pong career before you start. You say, oh, there's more here. I knock against the invisible wall, and but maybe even all the evolution and all the incarnations are like steps,
Like, I love that analogy when someone once said to me that we think in this way of the steps, but actually we're moving in this like spiral, moving up, because it appears sometimes we're as if going down, but we're actually always kind of on our path when we have that earnestness. Earnestness has been like my word of the year. Like when we're on that earnest path, like it appears sometimes, we're sliding down the ladder like snakes and ladders, but actually like it is always kind of going up and around, like as long as we're doing the practice and continually expanding in that way. And then it's like maybe you get to the top of the spiral and it's like, oh, the spiral is just one.
Yeah, it's like Ramana Maharshi who said this, like, we are like a salt doll, a doll made of salt, jumping into the ocean to find the bottom. That's the spiritual work. But before we find the bottom, there's no doll, there's only ocean. And so we cannot drag our body identification with us all the way. That's why it's difficult.
Yeah.
We cannot. It's like a stuffed toy we have outgrown, and how kids keep carrying them along forever, and they get more and more dirty, and have to be stitched, and they're falling apart, and in the end the mother has to steal it. That's kind of how we are in our spiritual search.
Yeah.
This is the identification with this stuffed toy.
Yeah.
My ego being body, we drag along. And we dress it up in new clothes, we take it to India, we take it to an ashram, we take it to Vipassana, but we don't want to let go of it, even though we know, I want to be free of the ego, I want to be free of all that, but it's so hard.
And the funny thing is that eventually each and every one of us has to let go. We all die. Like I read once, I don't know where I heard this, but it said that death would only be a tragedy if it didn't happen to everybody. But like the kind of...
I know. How did we think? Yeah,
because it's kind of so funny, like we use that analogy of the doll. It's like clearly this body is getting worn out and it's like, but how much clinging there is to it. It's so funny. Like, why don't we just let go of the attachment to it now and be free in our lives and enjoy life? And then when the last breath comes, it's like, it's liberation, but
But don't you think if you had enough money, you could just do like the Kardashians and you'll be happy?
Or that
you'll just look young forever. Well, isn't that not the way?
Yeah. Or that guy, I think he's German, American, that's like invested like so much to defy time, and he's like 45 or 50, but he has the metabolism of a 30-year-old. It's like, you're gonna die too.
Yeah.
But he'll die 90 looking 80. Or you'll get hit by a car tomorrow. I don't know. No, I wish him well. I hope he doesn't.
No, because all these, it's so funny because the Kardashians, all this stuff. It comes from the wish to be eternal, or from the knowledge I am eternal being. But we're trying to express it in a field where it's not true. But it's true that matter is eternal in a way, as energy. It is eternal, but it's not eternal as a tree, or bird, or you or me. That's not eternal, but what we are made of is eternal. So our spirit is eternal, our material, which is energy, is eternal. So we are made of eternity, and I think we must have the taste of eternity in us all the time. for the flavor of it, because we're always longing for it.
Yeah.
Like, let me go and spend money to buy shoes that will last 10 years, because that's great. Or let me have plastic surgery so I look young forever. We're trying to mimic, I would say, we can call it God or the eternal, the constant, the ever-being in the material field. And it's like desire. It's a binding desire, because we're trying to achieve something. A binding desire means addiction, right? And addiction means a short burst of well-being followed by a fall. And that's what the world offers us. Have a coffee, nice. 2 hours later, the coffee buzz is gone. Like, that is the nature of Maya. It's addictive, and that's why desire for more than what we need is binding us. But at the same time, we're expressing an innate knowledge of being eternal. But if nobody tells us that eternity is already here, we think we have to, like that guy, do a million tricks and spend all his millions on special diets, and that's achieving eternity.
Yeah, well, I guess that's why we are having to be stronger than the whole world to do sadhana, because...
And most of all, stronger than our own conditioning.
Yeah, that's true, because the world also includes this mind and this body. When I say, I have to be stronger than the whole world to do sadhana, meaning like as if me, but actually I'm included in the world.
Yeah.
Especially actually this own mind is like the most strong part of the world that's continually running that narrative.
Yeah, what is the most thing that bothers you the most in the world? That's you. Like, everything else is just bothering you through the filter of your conditioning. So, whatever you need to learn about the world is here. Whatever you need to learn about the divine and wisdom is here. Like, we are the ultimate scripture, each of us, to study. And that's why, again, Ibn Arabi, that Sufi, 12th century Sufi, who says, one of his most famous books is just, know yourself and know God.
Beautiful.
And that knowledge has been there forever.
Know yourself and know God.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point for us to tie the bow. I don't know if anybody wants to drop their final thoughts of the, we kind of covered a lot there. But that's the kind of joy of satsang. It's like weaving one way, weaving the other way, we covered a lot, but if anybody wants to drop any final thoughts, I know you're all great thinkers in the chat, but otherwise we'll wrap up. I feel like even though I ran in late, it gave the perfect scenario to jumping off, to just go to the space. And I think that's such an amazing thing about satsang, is that any situation we can use it to approach or to go towards the knowledge of the eternal, like you're saying.
Anything investigated with an open mind that doesn't need to find a definition takes you there. Yeah.
It's amazing.
God is clearing his throat we are God clearing his throat.
Yeah.
Not just you and me. This whole thing.
Yeah.
We are in. Is God saying?
That's beautiful. So, thank you so much for taking on this fun, spontaneous happening. I really just wanted to create an environment to be inclusive of people that have been listening to the podcast for so long, and appreciate them and give them the opportunity to be with us. So also, if anybody has any reflections they want to share later, definitely do that also. But just lots of appreciation for good company, and appearing to create good company, say through something like a podcast or something like having a friend. But exactly what you said, the situations are happening spontaneously. And I think it's just the more we put our attention towards satsang company, towards good company, the more it starts to blossom in that way.
I was just thinking about how in Indian poetry and song they often talk about, oh God, you have colored me.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, we have a mouse. What do you want?
I just want to see if there's anything
Okay,
up above,
yeah.
if we missed anything.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, no. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry. You were about to give the last final point, and I distracted you. I'm God, clearing my throat.
No, how they always say, oh God, oh Guru, you have colored me with the color of your love or your being. And I think that's what's meant with good company. You know, we're like little pieces of fabric, you know, and we float through this world and absorb color. And maybe for a long time we absorb color of things that are confusing or painful or addictive or binding. And then we start being mindful of what we absorb and what we color ourselves with, or maybe we start decoloring.
Yeah.
And we become the original color of colorlessness.
I've heard that described as vairagya before as well, that like the decoloring or sort of coming back to the pure color, which is no color. Yeah. So we could keep going and going.
Sorry?
I said we could keep going and going.
We can. Next time we do 5 hours.
Yes, next time 5 hours. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And for those that are listening to the recording, super awesome. And just, you're like the 3 times now on the Curious Yogi. You're the
I get a gold star.
Yeah, you get the gold star.
But you get the biggest gold star because you've been there all the times.
Okay, I'll take it.
Yes.
I'll take I'll take the biggest gold star. No, but I just really I love it and I appreciate you so much and love that we can be neighbors here in Scandinavia and in India and that we can always just hit the space, which is the best good company. When I was moving to Sweden, I was like, okay, Vijay's around the corner. That's a good reason to move. I'll have good company, at least one person in all of Scandinavia.
Well, for me too.
Yeah.
Like, there aren't I don't know any guru brothers and sisters from my guru in Denmark. Oh, well, I have one, but she's far away also. So you're closer by, even though you're in Sweden.
Yeah, so lucky us. And lucky everybody else that gets to share in your delight and my delight. So just lots of appreciation, and we'll drop off the live stream.
But what is the plan for this podcast? I'm just curious. I don't know it. Like, you're going to do it every once in a while? Maybe they want to know, the listeners?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good question. I'm thinking to do it once a month or every other month, this live stream format, and sort of shift the times, because it's really tricky with the time zones, because we have Patreon members that are in US, that are in Europe, that are in India, that are in New Zealand. We have quite a good cohort in Australia and New Zealand. So we'll probably alternate the times as well so that different people have a chance to join. But I'm glad this one worked for those in New Zealand and Europe this time, because I know they're super love the satsang, and thank you so much. We also look forward to sharing. So yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah.
You know, as I kind of roll, everything is always kind of a loose.
Yeah. No, I'm just.
But
it's not a one-off.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not a one-off. So we'll definitely be back. And lots of love to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please